Hello, hello, and welcome to tonight's webinar, Unlocking Our Patients' Awareness. And as I said, we're really pleased to be welcoming so many of you into our remote rehab community. But it's more, as I say, getting to be a family. And we love to think of you as this growing family of like-minded people who are all striving for excellence in this vastly changing environment with so much going on. Hi, Fran. OT from Maidstone, welcome.
Justine.
So a little bit about remote rehab, if you don't already know us or you're not a member. We're a really relaxed, informal space, an online space, a community, where therapists working within the stroke rehabilitation share and develop ideas all about how to deliver outstanding rehabilitation services to their patients. And you're able to find out more by the link in the chat. Now, if you go up to the top of chat, you'll notice that there's a load of links there. There's one to join our newsletter, and that keeps you up to date. Once a week, we send out a newsletter on Wednesday with all the links to our free content. So you're able to check that there and add yourself. We've got our link to our community landing page, so do have a check out there, and also to our YouTube community, so you can join us and follow us on YouTube. So a little bit more, we're Chris and Caro, aren't we? We're sort of coaches, and coaches for a long time, completely different backgrounds. Chris is more like corporate. You've been in corporate world, haven't you, Chris? Mm. And my background was actually in horses. I was a trainer, and then I got into the coaching side and also learning disability. And so that's a little bit about us, but we won't, you'll find about us in lots of different places. So we'll crack on. So tonight, Christina's going to be talking about awareness. What is awareness? Why are sometimes things out of our awareness? The science of awareness, and going through a framework about awareness. Then afterwards, I'm going to be giving Chris a live coaching session, which should be fun. We're going to do a little demonstration. We've never done that online before, have we, Chris? In front of an audience. That's going to be a little bit of fun. And then in the last part of our webinar, we're going to be talking about, speaking about a couple of patients and their stories around developing awareness after they had a stroke. And so we've got sort of three sections, and what we'd like you to do is when you want to post a question, if you can do that in Q&A rather than in chat, then after each section, Chris will answer the questions that you pose for her, and then I'll answer some questions, and then we'll probably mix them up and both answer questions at the end as well. So just post your questions, but we haven't got anybody looking after chat or questions tonight. It's just us. So we'll answer them as we come around to them. So Chris.
Thank you. So
would you like to start?
I would, and I'd love you to start with my slides, please. That would be gorgeous. So for me, awareness is one of the fundamental parts of working with my clients, and particularly working with my clients when they're going through their rehabilitation or are coming back from a really sort of traumatic experience. So I just want to put a few sort of definitions up for you for a moment, and just really spend a bit of time sort of exploring that. So the first thing I want to really sort of explore is awareness is a state or ability to perceive and to feel something. And what we often do when we're working with our clients and we're giving them exercises or we're giving them activities is we concentrate on them being able to achieve the activity or the exercise. So how many reps we want somebody to do or how we want somebody to do something. And we spend less time concentrating on their awareness of how they are experiencing themselves doing that exercise. So what it feels like in their body, what's going on for them in their thoughts and feelings. And that's what we want to really explore tonight is, so why is it so important that we actually do concentrate not only on what somebody's doing, but how they're experiencing it? So that's what we're going to be exploring as we go through. So awareness is about being conscious. It's about bringing our attention to something. And what science tells us is that what we pay attention to, we can develop. So when we pay attention to the feelings in our hands or the experiences that we're having, we have the potential to make some changes to that. So awareness is key and crucial to unlocking our potential and ability to change things. So the other thing is that we also, for many of us, we need to be aware of ourselves, about others and the world around us. And depending on our preferences and style, some of us can be extremely aware of other people. So I'm sure many of you have worked with patients who are so aware of what's going on, or I hope that's all right for you, or you look tired, and they become really aware of the other, and yet they are very unaware of themselves. There are other people who are very aware of the environment around them. So it's cold in the room. This is how it feels when I put my feet on the floor. This is what the floor feels like. But when it comes to them being aware of what's going on for themselves, they find that more difficult. Now, later on, when we come and do the practice session, you'll realise that I'm somebody who is less physically self-aware and much more aware of other people and what's going on in my surroundings. And so for me, I'm quite a challenging patient when it comes to really connecting into, so what was that exercise like? What were you feeling when you were doing that exercise? I'm quite challenging because I'm concentrating on, I did 50 reps, I achieved the goal, and you look really pleased and you seem really happy with what I've achieved. So job done, thank you, we can move on. Rather than actually, so let's just notice what was happening for you in your body. And I've got a bit of an interesting story when I've got a bunion on, I guess it's my age and all sorts of reasons, but I've got a bunion on my left foot. And when I was having some Pilates lessons, and my Pilates teacher said, can we just bring your awareness to your foot? And I looked down at it, and she said, no, I want you to feel into your foot, not just look at it. And I was sort of saying, my foot, okay. And then suddenly, as I was paying attention, really deep attention, I went, my God, my toe feels really tight. And she sort of looked at me and she said, and how long has it felt like that? And I heard myself saying, about 5 minutes. And she said, oh, wasn't it tight before? I said, I really wouldn't know, because it's only in the last 5 minutes of you bringing my attention to my toe that I've actually realised what it feels like. Up until that point, I had no idea. And of course, because I had no idea, I couldn't do anything about, or I wasn't able to do anything about moving my toe because I wasn't really paying attention to it. It was just something that was there and I was really a bit hacked off about and was kind of ignoring. And we'll come on to ignoring in a minute. So I know personally how challenging it can be for me to get into my body. And therefore I know for many patients how difficult it can be. But for others, really simple. Okay, so let's just move on to the next slide then, Caro, please. Thank you. So 4 aspects of self-awareness. Our body, what's going on in the physical body, what we're thinking about, how we're experiencing the emotions, the highs and the lows, the emotional sensations that are going on in our bodies, and our energy levels. And what's really important when we're going through our sort of rehabilitation journeys is that we become aware of all 4 of these aspects of our self-awareness. Because as we've discovered in previous webinars, and we've talked before, our thoughts have amazing impacts on our feelings and on our energy levels and on what we can achieve in our bodies. And becoming aware of our body and connecting into our body can also be a way of stepping out of our thoughts and all of the whirling thoughts that go through our minds. And then being aware of our energy levels can really give us some real access to our emotions and to tell us how we've been experiencing things emotionally. And if some of those emotions are debilitating, that can start to explain for us, well, that's why my energy levels are so low, is because actually I've been worrying for such a long time about these exercises that I've got to do, that I've really been exhausting myself through the process of worry, and that's what's been debilitating me. So it's just becoming aware, and on some different webinars we will go into in more detail about the awareness and how do I access my thoughts, how do I access my emotions and experiences. But tonight we're going to be concentrating on awareness in the body, as Caro said. So we're just going to pop onto the next slide. Thank you. So what does science tell us? Well, the first thing that science tells us is, and there's no shock to this, there's no surprise, is that we need to be aware of something in order to pay attention to it. And just as I gave you the example of my bunion, when something is out of our awareness, we're not able to do anything about it, we're not able to change it. But when we start to pay attention to something, we can, we're going to come on to next week talking about visualization and meditation. When we become aware of something and we begin to imagine and use our visualization and our meditation to imagine something being different, we can actually start to change. And when we're imagining it and practicing as well, physically, it gives us 3-4 times more potential for us to actually be able to achieve the things we want to achieve. So we've talked about the physical, mental, emotional, and I've added in here as well spiritual awareness, because I think one of the things that's really important is not only the sort of energy levels that we have, but also what we believe to be true, and our spirituality is really important to us. And that spiritual awareness can, so for many patients, can really support the direction of their rehabilitation. It's the simplest and easiest way of inviting somebody to step into their awareness is through their breath. And Caro's going to be doing a little bit of breath demonstration later on. But practicing through breath work, our awareness has a number of amazing benefits. One, it enables us to really just calm our thoughts down, and so we're then able to bring ourselves into that really fantastic state of awareness. Secondly, I don't know if you've ever practiced this, but when we start to, for example, just take a moment to actually just take a moment to pay attention to your right arm, and then just bring your attention to your breathing, and then just take a lovely deep breath. And then as you breathe out, just breathe that energy right the way down your arm. And just do that for a couple of breaths, 2 or 3 breaths. Breathe in. And just send that breath all the way down your arm. Beautiful. And I don't know whether you notice as I notice, but that changes my arm. And suddenly my arm feels more energized. It feels like it's just more alive. So our breath not only calms our thoughts and helps us to focus and pay attention, it can also be used beautifully in awareness exercises to actually move energy around our bodies, and therefore move our awareness and attention around our bodies. The other thing that science has proved is awareness expands the potential and possibilities. So those of you who attended a webinar a few weeks ago, when we were talking about positive mindset and awareness combined mean that basically we have far more capacity to solve our problems, to think creatively. So when we come into this moment of presence and connection with ourselves and awareness, we have so much more capacity, and we can think beyond the everyday things that feel like they're there and really challenging for us. We can move those to one side and be in a really powerful and creative space. As we've already said, awareness is the foundation stone of change. So once we are aware, and that comes into our consciousness, we have the potential. Another thing that I think is really interesting, and that we will be exploring it a bit more next week, is that our brains, as we know, can't actually distinguish between what's happening in reality, in the physicality of our world, and our imagination. So when we start to bring our awareness into our bodies, and we start to pay attention to our fingers, or in my case to my toe, as I started to bring my awareness into my toe, I was also discovering amazingly that my toe was straightening. So as I was sort of beginning to really connect into that feeling in my toe, I was also beginning to adjust things, because I was aware of how my toe was feeling. And so immediately my body was starting to respond. So when we come on to build on awareness next week and talk about visualization, that awareness and visualization is so powerful to actually help us to really move forward. And I just want to sort of add something that I think lots of the sort of the gurus and a lot of the Eastern traditions that talk about, and I think we in the West are beginning to realize, is there is no such thing as a reality. A reality is what we construct in our minds and what exists for me in this moment. And so awareness is a great way to bring our patients into the moment and then to give them the opportunity to really reframe and reconsider what's actually existing for them at the moment. So do you want to just flip over to the next slide? Okay, so what's in and out of our awareness? So I gave you the story early on about my toe. Something has to exist for us in the first place for us to become aware of it. So awareness and existence are kind of interlinked. So why are some things out of our awareness, and why do some things not exist? I'm sure many of you have come across this, and I have a classic case with my husband sometimes in the winter when he gets a bit of a cough, and he'll start to cough, and I'll say, well, you're coughing again. He goes, no, I'm not. Am I coughing? No, I'm not. And he just chooses absolutely not to pay any attention to his cough at all. It doesn't exist for him. And there are all sorts of reasons why. And I think certainly for some stroke patients who've been through real trauma, things don't exist for them because it's just too painful. It's too painful to consider that this actually exists. And when we come on a little bit later on to share a couple of patient stories, for one of the patients that we're going to be talking about, Lorna, it didn't, she had a numb leg and she just wanted to ignore her leg. It was almost like it's not there. I don't want to pay any attention to it. And when I do pay attention to it, it just upsets me because my leg is numb. So we've got this for some people about the existence. And one of the things that's really important when we're working with patients around whether something exists or not is the gentleness and the invitation and the beautiful way that we can actually invite them just to connect to something. The second thing for people why things are in and out of awareness is they're just not important to us. So we talked a bit about those of you who came to our webinar last week, about our filter systems. We delete, we distort, and we generalize, and we take in information, and some of it we take in and some of it we don't, and some of it we remember and some of it we choose to forget, because things just don't matter to us. They're not significant. So going back to my husband and his cough, it doesn't exist because he doesn't want to have a cough. And secondly, well, it's not that important. It's not significant to me. It's not relevant. And as long as I can ignore it, I don't have to do anything about it. So I won't have to go to the doctors. I won't have to have a conversation. We won't have to have a conversation about the fact that I'm a diabetic and I'm overweight and all those conversations that I don't want to have. Thank you very much. So if this cough doesn't exist and it's not significant to me, then I don't have to be put in a really difficult situation. The third area of whether something exists or not, and is actually in and out of our awareness, is whether there is a possibility of change. So it may exist, it may be significant for me, but the reason why I'm going to just take it out of my awareness and just completely discount it is because I don't think I can change it. So what cough? I haven't got a cough. It's not significant to me in any way. It's not something I can do something about. So it doesn't exist. It's not here for me. And therefore, I'm not going to pay any attention to it. So if you ask me to notice if my cough's got worse or it's better, I have no idea because I'm not even aware that I'm actually coughing. It's completely out of my awareness. And the fourth thing that's really important in terms of in and out of awareness is whether I think I've got the capability to change it. So is it possible for it to be different? And am I capable of changing it? Are two slightly different but distinctly different things. So I've got I know you keep telling me I've got a cough, but I haven't noticed it. It's not very significant to me. If I have got a cough, you can't change a cough anyway, because it's something that's just part of who I am. I've always, it's just there and I'm not going to pay any attention to it. And if I did pay attention to it, I couldn't make any difference to it. And so whilst the cough's not the most really great example, imagine, for example, and we're going to talk later about Lorna and her leg, I don't pay any attention to the fact my leg is numb. it's not significant and important because it's just, it's too much for me to connect to that, because actually that means that I've had a stroke and I don't want to do that. So my leg doesn't exist. It's not important. You can't change anything because that's just how my leg is. And even if I wanted to, what was I supposed to do about it? Because I had a stroke in the first place, and the stroke's the reason I've got my leg like this. So I'm going to take that whole leg out of my awareness. And of course, once it's out of my awareness, then I'm not noticing any changes in my leg. I'm not noticing if my leg is improving or not. And I'm not paying any attention in terms of visualization to my leg, because it doesn't exist. So that in and out of awareness, and we've all got our patterns for what is and isn't in our awareness. And our roles as therapists, I think, is to support patients really gently to bring things that they want to change into their awareness. So the next slide, please, Caro, thanks. So we've got an awareness framework that Caro and we've worked up and used in all sorts of different ways. And this is the kind of the process that we use, going from awareness into change. Now, we're not going to be going through this framework tonight, but I just wanted to share it with you, because, as I said to you, awareness is the thing that underpins. It's the foundation stone. So once we are aware of something, we can connect to what is, and that's really important. And Caro's going to be doing a little bit of that in the demo later. Because one of the things that we really want to do here is there is no judgment. This is how it is. And this is what's going on for me. And this is how my leg feels. And these are the sensations that I experience. And it's okay. It just is what it is. Because when we have the judgment, then we start to make it more difficult for ourselves to be able to change anything. So the first step is just pure, beautiful awareness. Second is paying attention in a really curious way. So we invite our clients to really be curious about, so just notice what you notice and be really curious. So if I go back to the example of me and my bunion, noticing, well, gosh, that feels really tight under my foot. And then notice what else you notice. Well, I noticed that I really don't have very much flexibility in my foot. And then notice what you notice. Well, I notice if I do this, this happens. So we become curiously observant about what's going on. Then the third thing is acceptance. So I went straight to, oh my God, that's the reason why. And oh, I should have done something about this sooner. No. It's okay. Just, we're going to stay in this wonderful place of it is as it is. And what we're going to do in a moment is very lovingly begin to make some adjustments. So we're just going to experiment with what is and see what happens. And then when we start to really enjoy that experimentation process of noticing what we notice and noticing the changes, then we can start to begin the integration process, which is the intentional focus on the change. So once I knew and could actually feel my toe, and I could feel the tightness in my toe, I was able to pay attention to that tightness and notice when it got tighter and when it got looser. And those are the phrases that I like to use. And then I could notice that when I moved my toe, what happened. And then I got massively curious about just adjusting and experimenting. And once I was in that experimentation phase, I was really able then to begin to go, okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to need to change my toe position, because if I want to change my bunion, I'm going to need to move my toe over. And even when I'm talking about it now, I'm watching my toe move. So it's that process of adjustment and integration that comes as a result of awareness, attention, and acceptance. So we might explore this in other webinars and really talk about the process of attention, acceptance, adjustment, and integration. But tonight we're concentrating on awareness. So Caro, the next slide, please. Thank you. So a state of awareness. So the first thing that when we're working with our clients and patients, is to invite them to really connect with the state of awareness. So how do I know that I'm aware? And I know that I'm aware of my body when I'm actually looking at that part of the body. So for me, that looking at it's really important. But also then I know what it feels like now to be in connection with my body. And so giving our patients that anchored state of when, I want you to go into that lovely state where you're aware of what's going on in your body. Okay. there is a way that they can do that. And once they're in that lovely state, then they can start to pay real and specific attention. So the state of awareness, the key to knowing that is when everything's, my mind is clear. It's almost like mindfulness, or mindfulness is another way of describing it, is being present with what is right here, right now. And then it's noticing what I notice with awe and wonderment in a systematic way. So a bit like those of you who've done yoga and you do that wonderful yoga nidra where you literally pay attention to each different aspect of your part of your body. It's that noticing what I notice, but adding, because as we looked at on the positive mindset webinar, the importance of awe, when we can really go, wow, my toe, look at what my toe does. That awe is also a really positive state for us to be able to make changes from. So that wonderful state of awe. And as we access a state of awareness, we become more and more aware and more able to notice. So the deeper we go into awareness, the more we notice and the more that becomes available to us. So it's a bit like the mindfulness practice. The more we practice, the more we can notice, and the more, therefore, we have the potential to adjust. And breathing, as we talked about, is the access point. And when we come on to talk about visualization and meditation in our next two webinars, we will be coming back to this awareness and to this way of connecting into our awareness as a point of access to be able to visualize, which is visualize yourself doing something new and different. So I was visualizing my toe moving before my toe could move, and then into a really beautiful movement meditation so that I'm actually practicing the movement in my toe from a place of awareness. So that's an introduction to, or a whistle stop through it tour, sorry, put my teeth back in, to awareness. And now I think I'm going to, I don't think there are any, are there any, oh, there are a couple of questions. Let me just hop into the question. Can you suggest some tips and facilitate awareness specifically with clients with cognitive and tactile and sensory impairments? If you could just pop in there a little bit more about the cognitive and tactile impairments for me, just give me a little bit more detail about that, and I'll come back to that question in a minute. So if you could just give me a sort of a sense of what it is that they're having difficulty with, so we can then address that with a case of these are the kind of things that you can do specifically for that particular patient. So that would be lovely if you could just do that, and we'll come back to that in a minute. Thank you. Right, so what we're going to do now is move on to a demonstration of bringing me as the client into a state of physical sensory awareness into my body. So I'm handing over to you.
Yeah,
I'll just have a drink of water before we start.
Yes, now you're a client. You can have a drink of water and
thank you.
Take your time. So yes, you can just relax for a moment. Good, that's great. Okay, thank you, Chris, for that. So you can take your presenter head off and put your
I'm off.
Client. So,
and those of you who came to, before we just start, those of you who came to our webinar last week, if you want to watch my eye movements, you can actually have a look at how I'm accessing my awareness and how I'm getting into a state of awareness. You can watch that and you can find out a little bit more about my learning style, should you want to do that. So
we already know awareness is a state or ability to perceive, to feel, or to be conscious of events and objects. And more importantly for us right now, for the purpose of this webinar, is the ability to be aware of our sensory patterns and what is happening inside of our body. So when we tune into our bodies in an aware mindset, we become aware of the sensations on the inner. And when we start to practice this level of conscious awareness, the sense data that we receive may be quite new to us. And it has an impact, you know, how we've lived our lives up to now. And also, as Chris mentioned, our learning style would all have an impact on this. So this could result in it being quite difficult to put into words for our clients. And, you know, having the experience of being in the body, if they're not used to that, they may find it difficult. And we've all had that experience, haven't we, where we say, it's like, I can't really explain it, but I kind of understand it. So that's a possibility of, you know, when you first start working with this. So knowing something through feeling doesn't necessarily give us the ability to externalize and speak about it. So we're going to make a start. Chris, let's make a start. So the first thing that I would always do, and I'm going to do now, is take a moment to breathe, actually. And I would be with my client and say, let's just take a moment to just let go and relax and just become aware of this moment. So Chris, tell me what you're feeling aware of right now, just generally.
The first thing I'm aware of, and I've been aware of it all day today actually, is I'm just aware of my neck feels really tight. Yeah, I'm just aware that I've got a bit of a just a tightness in my neck, and I just on and off I just have a little bit of a headache every now and again.
Okay, so you've got some tightness in the neck and awareness of a bit of a headache here.
Yeah.
And that's at the front of the head, is it? The headache?
Yeah, it just comes and goes here actually. It's a bit, yeah, I'm just trying to connect with it now because it's not there at the moment.
Okay. So we can just come back. We can just come back to that if you like in a moment. Yeah. Let's go to the neck. Is the neck tight at the moment?
Yes, it is tight.
Okay. And can you tell me specifically where it is tight?
Yeah, it's tight here. It's tight just there. It feels really tight there. And when I go like that, I can hear it clicking. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And just for a moment, let's just have a little kind of circle around the body and see if there's any other feelings around the body, anything that you notice. And you can do this eyes open or eyes closed.
Okay.
But just as you are.
So it's interesting because I have been talking about I've been talking about my bunions. So the first place I go to is how tight my foot does actually feel.
Okay.
But only because I've been talking about it. It's now, as I said, because I've been vocalizing it. Yeah. I'm now experiencing it as tight. I would have said to you earlier on, where's the tightness in your body? I'd have gone, oh, it's in my neck because that's irritating me. So I suppose I pay attention to what irritates me rather than, so if it gets to an irritation level, then it's like, oh, that's annoying me.
You start to notice it and it becomes annoying when it's irritating.
Yeah.
Okay, let's just start with, just for a moment, staying with irritation. Let's just start with taking a breath and just feeling the irritation. And just imagine that you're just there with that and you're just present with it, and just stepping into a kind of non-judgmental space. Let's just for the moment, just have that awareness of irritation with the neck. And if you want to, you can physically touch the neck as well, put your hand on the neck or not, depending on how you feel. That's right, just connecting in. And how does it feel when you start to move the neck?
First thing I realise is I've been sitting like stationary for long periods of time today. So when I started to move my neck, I just realised, well, the reason it's tight is because actually you haven't really been moving your neck today at all. So, and I sort of here, I'm just sort of saying that to myself, going, well, it's just interesting. You just haven't been moving around a lot today, really. So no wonder your neck feels tight. Okay. I think what's interesting is I only notice something when it gets back to that irritation, when it becomes something which I feel, oh, that's irritating me.
Okay, so we've got stiffness in the neck, irritation, Yeah, and you just become really aware of it now. So would you say your irritation levels are going up or coming down at the moment, or are the same?
No, they're going down actually, because now I'm moving my neck.
Mm.
The tightness is going, and the same with I'm moving my neck and I'm moving my foot. And once they're starting to move, or now they're starting to move, I just feel I feel a lot better. Yeah, I don't feel so irritated. Or if I don't feel irritated now.
Okay. So bringing that sort of conscious awareness, and we're very surface level at the moment, but bringing that conscious awareness to it, it's the attention to it is just beginning to disperse or has dispersed the irritation. Would you say that there's any irritation there, or do you feel that you've dispersed it?
No, it's gone. It's gone. I think it's just really interesting. What I've noticed is that I get irritated with myself. So I get, oh goodness. So yeah, as soon as something becomes painful, there's an irritation that goes. That I say to myself that I'm irritated with that.
Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to make a start in a moment. Okay, because it looks like we've already made a start, but we're just really on the surface. You're just becoming present really at the moment. And we're going to do a little bit of breath work in a second. But before we do that, I just want you to check around the body and just notice what you notice.
I'm just noticing it that I'm feeling. So not only is it around my neck, but I'm also noticing around my shoulders and around the base of my back is really quite tight as well.
Okay, so around the shoulders and the base of the back. And when you say the base of the back, is that sort of around the coccyx, or is that actually sort of more in the lumbar, or is it higher? Whereabouts is that?
It's sort of, I suppose it's around the sort of hip. It's the hip joints really. That's where it feels quite tight.
Okay. So as low as it, or above the pelvis? Because I'm sort of sensing it on the ridge of the pelvis a little bit.
Yeah, so there, yeah, along the back there.
Okay, so let's just start with taking a breath. Literally just to be conscious of the inward and the outward breath. And just take a breath of the degree that you feel that you need to take at the moment. Yeah, just really natural. Just taking your time. You've got lots of time and lots of availability to just allow yourself to breathe. And just know yourself a little deeper. So as you begin to breathe, and you just allow yourself to know yourself a little bit more inside, just pay attention to what comes up for you. So you can see things are beginning to move a little bit.
Yeah, the first thing I'm aware of is I'm sort of in that, I seem to spend, so the first thing I wanted to do when you said bring attention was I just wanted to move my shoulders back and I just wanted to open things up. Because I was really aware that I suddenly became aware that I was kind of sitting like this, and I think I've been sitting quite like that for quite a long time because I've been I did a long drive today. Yeah, and I just think, oh, I just want to open everything up.
Okay, so take an inward breath and just do what you want to with the shoulders. Just perhaps roll them, open up. Just feel that you've got that a movement, you know. And I noticed earlier you were just moving the neck. Just feel that opening up. Just feel into it, and at the same time, be aware of the breath. So you really got kind of a couple of things going on. Your awareness of the breath, and your awareness of the body, and what's present. And then just gradually bring a little bit more awareness to the breath as you settle. And just try breathing in for 4 counts and out for 4 counts. So inward breath, 1, 2, 3, 4. And outward breath. 1, 2, 3, 4. Just sense that bit of rhythm just coming into that 1, 2, 3, 4. And 1, 2, 3, 4. And just feel yourself gradually relaxing on the outward breath, letting any tension just drain from the muscles.
I'm noticing also, it's really interesting, I've noticed there's a bit of tension here as well now as you're paying attention to I'm beginning to become aware of just there's sort of a tension across my chest as well.
Tension across the chest, yeah.
And I suppose that would figure, if I've been like that all day, then it would figure that's been,
Yeah, whether you've been driving, you had a long drive and tension. So just go back into the breath again. 2, 3, 4. And out. 1, 2, 3, 4. Just feeling the rhythm and the inward and the outer breath and the upwards and downwards fall of the chest. So you feel yourself really just deeply relaxing.
That's easier actually, since that feels so much easier.
Okay. And just stay in that place of open curiosity. So you're curious about what's happening to the body. You're curious about the sensations in the body, and you're like your own scientist. It's like you're just watching and observing and feeling what's happening. And you just start thinking about wandering around the body, checking the body out. And you're just thinking about where you want to start. So where do you feel most drawn to?
Well, what I'm just really aware of is I just feel so much more relaxed.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah, I feel much, much more relaxed.
Mm. And some of our audience might like to do this too.
And I've just noticed, I've noticed when I've just done another quick check around my body, and I've noticed that my foot just feels so much looser. So I'm going back to my left foot, and I'm feeling my body, and there's just so much more movement in my foot.
Mm.
And my back stopped aching.
Okay. Oh, why do you think that is?
Probably because I don't have any tension in my body anymore. I have a sneaky suspicion.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's just move to a slightly deeper level with that. So I'm getting the sort of feeling that it would be nice if you put your hand into your back, so that if you lean forwards a little bit and just bring your hand. You might just want to have the back of your hand because it might be difficult to have the palm of your hand, but the back of your hand, and just put it into the area that was stiff. And I'm going to ask you to do something a little bit different. The other hand, I want you to put the other hand on your forehead. So you've got one on your back and one on your forehead. And then just breathe. So we're just going into the rhythmical breathing. 2, 3, 4, and out. 2, 3, 4. And in. And out. And at the same time, you're aware of the connection that you have to your body through your hands. You're just becoming aware of the connection that you have. And the breath. I want you to imagine that you're... Okay.
Just go sleep. It's lovely.
Just imagine that you're traveling between those 2 points, between your left hand on your head, on your forehead, and your right hand in the small of your back into that place which was stiff. And just notice that you're just deeply relaxing through the breath. You're feeling that connection to yourself, really coming into that conscious awareness of connecting with yourself. And if the arms get heavy or tense, just let them go. Just bring them away. And just stay in that conscious awareness of self. And what just happened for you? What was the feeling like?
It's lovely. I've just got this wonderful floaty feeling. Also, the pain in my back's gone. And the tension across my head. It's just gone.
Yes.
And the pain in my neck's gone.
Okay. So that's kind of a very, very, very small beginning. And I still want to do just a little bit more with you.
I'm just conscious of time though, Cara. I'm just conscious it's 10 to, so I'm conscious of time. So we'll save the little bit extra for another time.
The time goes so fast, especially when we get into this sort of stuff. It's like time goes into non-linear time when we start getting
So we'll do a little bit extra next week. You can do a bit extra next week. You can carry on next week. Brilliant. Thank you.
So, namaste. Thank you very much. Thank you for being a wonderful.
Okay, so I'm just going to get some questions here. Can you suggest any tips to facilitate? Just thinking of clients who are experiencing numbness in a limb. Lovely. I will go into that. And would you use awareness? Yes. Okay. That's a lovely question, Kate. So you beautifully have led me into a little story of Lorna. So talking about numbness. So Lorna had numbness and coldness in her left leg. And she'd had that for, I think, probably, Cara, when I started working with her, she'd probably had it for about 18 months.
Quite a while, because she was recovering.
Yeah. And she was absolutely, totally, she just convinced that that was how life was going to be for her, that she was going to have a numb leg. And we went back to that early point where she was just telling herself that basically this leg is numb, there's nothing I can do about it, and it's going to stay like this forever and a day. So I started to do some work with her, and it took me probably about 2 or 3 sessions to really invite her to imagine the possibility that she might regain feeling in her leg. And we started by really just helping her, or I started by helping her to begin to become aware of, when she said it was cold, what did cold mean? So look, she'd developed a whole series of stories that she was telling herself about her leg. So the whole of my leg is numb. I can't feel anything in my leg. That's it. And she would bash her leg and say, I can't feel anything, there's nothing there. And she'd get really, really angry with it. And it was an it. It wasn't her leg anymore. It was that thing, that it. So we started with just some relaxations, and we just started to invite the potential and possibility of becoming aware of the feelings in her leg. And step 1 was to really reconnect her through a series of, just as Cara's been doing with me, I just want you to bring your breath down into your awareness, into the connection of how it feels in your leg, to begin to notice what she noticed about the sensations in her leg. And just as I did when I was talking to you about my bunny and said, oh my gosh, I can actually feel this, she very slowly began to bring that awareness of her feelings in her leg. And she started to notice that her whole leg wasn't freezing cold. It was just one particular part of her leg that was cold. And that was an amazing realization for her. We then did a beautiful visualization, which we'll talk about next week, but we did a whole visualization around what would it be like. So she talked about her leg being an ice cube. And we talked a little bit about, well, what would it be like if you had a warm feeling that was flowing through your leg? So let's start with the warm feeling that you have in your right leg, and just notice what you notice about that feeling in your right leg. And now what would it be like if you were to imagine for a moment that you could have that feeling of warmness in your left leg? And so she transferred beautifully and brilliantly the feeling of warmth from one leg to the other. which shocked the hell out of her, because she'd got so used to this leg is freezing cold and nothing's going to change it. So when she realised that she could bring warmth into her leg, and what she's been practicing religiously is visualizations. She's been practicing awareness, and she's now very slowly beginning to bring back the sensations into her legs. And it's been a remarkable, remarkable journey. So that sort of process of just paying attention and paying attention has brought all sorts of incredible benefits to her. And she's also noticing when her leg, so what happens, the difference between when she's standing up, when she's sitting down, and when she's lying down. And she's noticing the link between her legs numbness and her being tired and fatigued. And this is one of the ways that she expresses fatigue, is through her leg. So she's on a journey of the most incredible discovery about, well, this leg that I've spent so much of my life, or this last part of my life, being so angry with, I'm now loving my leg into, and we none of us know where it's going to go and where it's going to take her. But what I am really noticing is how the anger has dissipated, the frustration has disappeared, and in its place is this beautiful, loving relationship. And through this loving relationship and through the attention and the awareness that she's creating, changes are beginning to happen. So we're just going to watch this space and see where she gets to next, because it's, and we'll keep you posted, but it's an incredible journey for her. So we've used that with numbness, and I've used it, Lorna's an example, but I have used it with other patients. In terms of cognitive impairment, I think the thing that I've discovered is that anybody is just relaxation and breathing is with people. And what I find so interesting with breathing is when somebody's connected to you, they match your breathing. So if you can just really reduce your breathing and bring your breathing levels down and really bring itself into a state of calm, then the person will often follow you. And then you can just gently, by doing a meditation. I don't know, Carrie, you've done meditations with people with learning difficulties and with cognitive impairments, haven't you? Yes. And had amazing successes. I mean, they're not stroke patients, so I can't say that aligns to a stroke patient. But I don't know whether you want to talk a little bit about some of the people you've worked with cognitive impairments.
I think, from my point of view, and especially, I suppose I might have had an advantage coming from a horse's background. Of course, that you had to sort of know things about the horse because the horse couldn't speak. So you got, I was used to sort of tuning in, I suppose, for want of a better word, and sort of knowing what was wrong. And mothers have that with their children. And I think it's actually, and fathers too, but I think it's actually stepping into the deep relaxation in yourself. So I would always prepare myself, and when I'm with the person, with the breath work myself, and go into a really deep relaxation. And as you were saying, Chris, matching the breath. And at that level, when you're deeply relaxed, you start to pick up the feelings and you can start to sense. So extrasensory, maybe, what, I don't know exactly how it works, because, but it's like that intuition. You start to sense the body and feel that person's body. That's what happens with me. And with somebody who has no language and very little, I could still feel what's going on. And then, as you were saying, bringing their attention to the breath, if you can just get them to breathe and relax, very often that in itself has such great benefits. And of course, the more somebody is impaired, you take baby steps. You can't do very much. You can just do a little bit at a time. But as a therapist, I would always hold for them in a completely healed and wholeness, and I would hold that vision. And I think that makes makes a difference to people's progress, because it's like somebody saying, I believe in you. It has a great impact on us, doesn't it?
And I think there's also something for me about just slowing everything down really, really slowly. So just really spending time with somebody and just putting, your hand on your chest and just taking a deep breath, and then inviting them just to copy you. So just copy what you do, and so you don't have to put the language stuff around it. Caro's doing that for me because I want to understand something, but lots of people, they don't want language around their feelings, and you're just saying, and you just point at the foot and just say, and just pay some attention to your foot. And then as you breathe in and you breathe out, they'll just start to copy you and start to follow your way of paying attention to your foot, their foot.
Yeah,
okay.
We copy.
Yeah, mirroring. Have you used this so I wonder whether you just want to talk a little bit about some of the work that you did with some of the guys who with learning difficulties, and who just found it difficult to understand. Have you had success with them? Because one of the questions was, have you had success with people who've got learning difficulties or cognitive impairment?
Learning, because I haven't. Yes, stroke is different. Although the only people that I've worked with stroke are, have been able to fully understand and been able to action things. But working with people with learning difficulties is obviously very interesting. And I have a son who had very, very little language for many, many years and has severe learning difficulties. And I suppose that helps with building one's intuition. But what I know is that working with somebody who has difficulty in that area is that you can invent things and ways for them to communicate. So one of the things that I did was create a whole learning development system around colour and food. And I was thinking only today, I went for a walk today, and I was thinking about the different ways that people can communicate. So they can communicate through numbers and through pictures and through colours. If we broaden our outlook onto communication as a much bigger thing, and then of course we can see the changes in their skin tone, the colouring or the lack of it, draining, sweating, uncomfortable, shifting, moving, all the communication is such a small, actually verbal communication is just such a very small amount of communication. So yeah, I think that we have to find a way in to that person, because we're all individuals, aren't we? We have to find the inroads in, and I just come back to, if you breathe and relax yourself and you match that person, if you're totally relaxed, then people start to relax around you, and your client will always, just come into that state of relaxation, and then magic happens. I used to have a wonderful teacher who used to say to me, just relax. There's nothing to do, just relax.
Just breathe.
It'll all breathe. It'll all just unfold.
And that's just the final. Yeah, and it's the final story that I just wanted to share with you about a guy we called Paul, who we worked with a long while ago, who had challenges with his upper limbs, didn't he? He had challenges with his arms. And one of the things that was really fascinating with Paul was that he used to go to the gym, he used to work out, he would swim, and he was doing all sorts of things. But the one thing that he'd never actually done was connect into the feelings that he was experiencing in his arm. So a bit like with Lorna, he just kind of said no. So he was working out like crazy, and just wasn't paying any attention to the minute movements and what his arm could actually do for him. And it was really interesting when we did a whole series of meditations with him and a whole series of awareness meditations, how suddenly he actually started to go, gosh, I can actually feel my arm, and I can start to notice when I do that particular exercise, it's not very good for my arm, because I actually get a sort of and it was so interesting, wasn't it, that he'd never really noticed the pain or the discomfort before, until he actually started to do some awareness work. So it's interesting. The other thing I just wanted to say was, just quickly before we finish, was it's also important because some people who take their particular limb out of awareness and still exercise with it, that it's when they bring it into awareness that they notice the subtleties and the nuances that they've never actually paid attention to before, which then enables them to do so much more. So I think it's 8 o'clock by my clock.
Wow. Whew.
Thank you. That was a whistle-stop tour through awareness. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. Yes. And I hope that we just quickly check if there are any other questions. I
I
think
can't believe where the time goes.
Thank you.
I can't believe where the time goes.
We look forward to seeing you next week if you'll want to join us in this webinar series, when we're going to be doing we're building on awareness, and we're going to be doing some visualization, which is going to be really good fun. So we're going to be looking at the different types of, we call it visualization, but we're going to be going back to learning styles and auditory, kinesthetic, visual, and having a good chat to yourself, and how you can use those different visualizations when you're preparing for exercise. We're going to be doing that next week. So until next week, we'll see you again.
Well, I just want to remind everybody before you dash off, just the links to all our community and joining our newsletter and everything are at the top of chat. So if you scroll up in chat, you'll find all the links there if you want to click on anything. And yes, lovely to see you next week. Thank you so much for joining us. We've had a blast.
Thank you. Bye. And on my neck, thank you very much. I'd just like to say thank you for my neck. Thank you. Take care. See you next week. Bye.
Bye-bye. Now you're a client, you can have a drink of water.